Greetings pioneers, and welcome to the step-by-step build guide. The factory build I'm about to explain is designed to be the very first oil processing plant in a playthrough. It requires a normal oil node, several unlockable items from the Awesome shop, and also the fluid packaging and later the petroleum power milestones. Other than that, it is so easy to build you might consider to skip building the temporary setup first. The factory produces rubber, plastic and packaged fuel, which can also be turned into power to save up on plastic at the same time. The main build is basically just a simple refinery pit for 12 refineries. Start with a foundation of 20 by 7 and a square of 6 by 6 at one end. Place another row of 4-meter foundations on the boundaries and use the simple wall segments to build a centered pit of 16 by 3 and a square of 2 by 2 inside. Place the 2 fuel refineries at the broad end and the 10 oil refineries from the other end like this, so there will be an 8-meter gap between them. Use this gap to connect the heavy oil residue from the oil refineries back to the fuel refineries. They will produce 80 fuel per minute, which can be routed to the power generators later, the fuel packaging, or be collected in the buffer. Important to note, by connecting the fuel packagers separately from the buffer, you can use the headlift of the refineries and don't need to build a separate pump. The 2 constructors can be underclocked to 40 canisters per minute. The oil extractor needs to be fully overclocked, but every other machine will run on 100% efficiency. The 2 oil refineries at the end are set to produce rubber and the other 8 to plastic. Together they will generate 120 heavy oil residue per minute, which is the perfect amount to feed 2 simple fuel refineries. To connect the power and the conveyor belts, build a ceiling with a room height of 16 meters around the refineries. I like to place the power connectors on the lower inside corner and cover them up with the steel beam, and then build 2 conveyor belts at the ceiling, one for the plastic and one for the rubber. It makes it easier to upgrade the factory later, and also you can avoid to use smart splitters because you need some of the plastic to produce the containers for the packaged fuel. So let me show you how I place mergers on the ceiling. First, take a 1-meter foundation and zoom it vertically 4 meters. Delete the 3 foundations in between and extend the platform. Line up your mergers with the outputs from the refineries, and from below, place them on the edge of the foundation. Connect the lift belts from the mergers to the refinery outputs to make it a perfect fit. As a final touch, you can cover up the Z fighting between inner wall and foundation with some steel beams. And since I'm on the topic of decorating, let me share another trick. You can nudge simple walls into place to create a grid like this. The factory is now fully up and running. The fuel gets packaged and stored into containers, and all that's left to do is to build a truck station and transport everything back to your main base where you can sort it out. The obvious advantage of building a dedicated loading dock where rubber and plastic have their respective truck stations is that you stay flexible. More than one factory might want to receive plastic or rubber from here in the future, and scaling up the production by adding onto the factory becomes easier when the infrastructure is already there. I always build my roads 3 foundations wide and segment the loading area in 1.5 foundation wide parts. If you don't have the half foundations unlocked yet, you can simply nudge foundations into each other. Putting this much effort into a loading area, or road system even, will defeat the purpose of rushing through this phase though, so you might want to postpone the step. Unlocking the power generators with the petroleum power milestone, on the other hand, should be a priority. Build a separate platform for 4 generators and connect them to the fuel pipe you prepared earlier. They will use up the full amount of your fuel production and will generate 1 gigawatt of power. While they are running, you need to turn off the fuel packaging, which you can manage by installing a power switch and turning the circuit off. The same can be done with power generators though. When you reactivate the fuel packaging again, you will need to switch off every power generator manually, or you can install a pipe valve. There are a few things to consider with this technique. First, you want to place the valve as close to the fuel source as possible. Second, you want to keep the pipe length to a minimum. Since the pipes have a holding capacity themselves, there's always a loss of fuel when the production gets simply switched. So you will need to pause both productions from time to time to let the buffer refill. As a rule, I recommend always close the pipe valve before turning packaging on, and always turn packaging off before you open the valve. To save up on packaged fuel and thereby on times you need to switch production up, I recommend to set deliberate pauses for truck routes, which brings me to the topic of infrastructure. For my road designs, I tend to use foundations to build an outline and fill in the road by snapping it underneath a steel frame, thereby lowering it by 40 centimeters. Building curves has become a lot easier. In this example I am using an old method which uses walkways to make sure the angled foundations gets turned on the corner. It was developed by DC Wan, and there will be a link in the description where he explains the old and the new method. Learning to build curves seems intimidating at first, but gets easy very fast, and once you know how, it will unlock a lot of new possibilities. You don't have to aim for perfect geometry or an all-connecting road network. Sometimes just having a small bend before an off-ramp can make a big difference. The last thing I want to address is the everlasting discussion around the pipe bugs. To avoid problems, you should follow these 3 steps. First, make sure you have enough head lift. Second, always connect the pipe segments last and rebuild them if you add another segment. And third, when operating a pipe on max capacity, load balance it, meaning connect them to the center of the pipe network which is feeding the machines. As I'm finishing up this video, I just remembered that I have promised in my last video that this factory won't take you more than an hour to build, which is very optimistic for the whole thing, but maybe not for the main building. So in case you might build this factory, please let me know in the comments how long it took you, since its main purpose is to build it decently fast. Also, don't miss my next episode where I will upgrade this compound by building a simple diluted packaged fuel power plant. So long, pioneers, thank you for watching and see you soon.